اللذات. Try your best to remember that which destroys the pleasures. So from the means of that which destroys the pleasures is death. And from the means of you remembering death is visiting the graveyards. Okay, attending the funeral prayers. These are things that will help you remember that there isn't long left until your time will come, my time. فَلَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. No one knows, no single person knows where death will come knocking at their door. It could be now that I may leave this masjid, and that's it, that's the last breath I will take will be this masjid. Same goes for all of you here, everyone listening. No one knows, so therefore it's important for us to try and remember it. Okay, and that's from the means of this workshop, inshallah, for us not just to look, learn, and then afterwards go and carry on our lifestyle and start eating and drinking and disobeying Allah and just carry on. No, the means was, of course, for it to be practical so we understand, and also for us to implement it if needed, and also it's a means of us remembering death. Remembering, that's the main point for us to be able to be always in constant, always trying to be constant and frequent with regards to remembering death. That's something that's very, very important, Ikhwani. That's why Prophet ﷺ used to always advise his companions to try their utmost best to visit the graveyards. From the etiquettes of visiting the graveyard, we mentioned from them is, if you can, to remove the shoes that you're wearing. Okay, if you're going to pass in between graveyards. Another one that I've seen myself very much, people are heedless of, is when they're burying the deceased. Let's say the deceased is here, that's the graveyard, and this is the actual grave, of the deceased. There will be another deceased body here, and on the left and right, and at times you'll find that the brothers and sisters will step on top of another graveyard. Ikhwani, this is someone else also that has died. So you have to respect and always bear in mind your surroundings when you're at the graveyard, and try and be from those that doesn't step on another grave of another brother or sister. So that's also something that you should always note down. When you're there, try and bear that in mind as well. From the etiquette when visiting the graveyard is that you should say the dua that the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions. Assalamu alaikum, ahl al-diyar. Peace be upon you, inhabitants of the dwellings, meaning the people of the graveyard. Min al-mu'mineen, from the believers. وَإِنَّا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ بِكُمْ لَاحِقُونَ. If Allah wills, we shall join you. We shall be joining you. We shall be joining you. وَإِنَّا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ بِكُمْ لَاحِقُونَ. Inshallah, soon we're going to be joining you. نسأل الله لنا ولكم العافية. Reported in Abu Dawood. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal for us and for you for afiyah. Okay, so this dua is from the means that you should say whether you're attending a funeral and you're actually going to be taking part in burying the deceased, or you're just attending and just going to witness the deceased being buried, or you're walking past or you're driving past. We would see many times from the scholars in Medina, we'll see them even in the cars, they'll be going past the baqi, so they haven't even entered the grave, and they'll say the dua because it's outside, you can see it. So it doesn't necessitate you to be from those that are actually there in the graveyard at the time of the grave. No, it's the dua generally you say when you go past the graveyard. From many innovations that people do is they start bringing the mushaf and they read Baqarah or Fatiha and what have you. All of these acts are innovations. You don't read Quran when you enter the graveyard. You don't bring with you flowers. You don't start calling upon the deceased and asking them, even though they're righteous, to help you and aid you. All of these acts of innovation. And it could even lead to acts of shirk, which is associating partners with Allah, an act that Allah the Almighty does not forgive. As Allah mentions in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. Allah Azza wa Jal does not forgive shirk. وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. And Allah Azza wa Jal forgives that other than shirk. So that ayah, which is reported twice in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ. Allah does not allow anyone to associate partners with him. So that's something that you should bear that in mind as well. From the other means of the etiquettes of visiting the graveyard is that you should try your best when you're alive before the time comes to live a good life. Why? Because the way you lived your life, ikhwani, always bear that in mind, is the way you're going to be resurrected. And the story that I was going to mention before, which I mentioned now before Salah, is that there's been many times, and one specific incident where a parent came to a scholar asking him, "Oh, Shaykh, I have my kids. Death was approaching them, and I tried to aid them and help them to say to them, La ilaha illallah, as I knew and what have you. But they could not utter the word, and they did not utter. What was the reason? Why?" The parent wanted to know. So how did the Shaykh respond? He said that verily your child did not live the life of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. And that's the reason why they were not able to utter the words. Because they did not live the life of a Muslim. So one that does not live a life of a Muslim, when death approaches and knocks at their door, it will be impossible for them to be able to say, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Meaning their whole life that they've lived could have been in disobedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. So that's why it's important, ikhwani, to try your utmost best to live a life of a Muslim. Not just be Muslim by name, but be Muslim with name and action, inwardly and outwardly. As we know that the hadith is with regards to two states. The person is at two states. Imma rawdatun min riyad al-jannah, his graveyard will be from the gardens of peace of paradise, or hufratun min hufr, or he will have a section, literally, hufra is like literally a hole, from the holes and sections and parts of Jahannam. So it's either one of the two, and you are the one that decides. With regards to visiting the graveyards, ikhwani, then it's something that softens the heart. Okay? It's from the means that soften the heart. If you live a life where you don't worship Allah, you don't fear Allah, and you visit the graveyard and you bear this in mind, that today or tomorrow could be my turn, then it should soften your heart and make you humble, make you from those that wants to worship Allah even more. I'm not perfect, no one is perfect. But the more we go and try and do things, as Allah mentioned in the Quran, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, each and every single person shall taste death. But it's just about, have you prepared? The question shouldn't be, when am I going to die? That's not important, ikhwani, when you're going to die. It's not going to benefit you to know when you're going to die. What's going to benefit you is what you put forth. Am I ready to meet my Lord? Am I actually ready for death when it does come knocking? Because it doesn't have any invitation where it invites you and you can choose to reject it or accept it. Death does not give invitations, but rather when it's your time, it's your time. So the question should be, have I prepared for it? Am I ready to meet my Lord? Because I know, wallahi, I'm not ready, ikhwani. Because I haven't done anything to actually say that I can meet my Lord and stand in front of Allah tomorrow. So therefore, that should be the hal of each and every one of us. And this was the hal of the companions. They were in constant, all the time, feeling sad and feeling sorry in terms of what? Meeting their Lord. And I mean this from the stage of not wanting to meet their Lord. Of course, they would want to meet their Lord. Everyone wants to meet Allah. But I'm talking about in terms of being ready for it. Because there's a difference in wanting and a difference in being ready for actually having that death come knocking on your door. We've mentioned as well that we should not bring anything from any sort of innovation. We don't need to bring any props, anything at all, no papers. Sometimes you find people, they bring things, tissue, they have pieces of papers, they've written du'as and they try to place it in the grave. Shukiyat, all of this stuff will not benefit the deceased. You don't need to bring anything with you. You don't need to bring anything at all. If you're coming there, just come and bring your sincere heart. That's what you need to bring with you. Your sincere heart that is going to make dua for that deceased person. Because the Prophet said in the hadith that al-an yus'al, that now he is being questioned. Of course, we know as well that when the soil and everything has been covered and the people start to leave, then we know in authentic hadith, many of them, that the deceased can hear the footsteps of the last person walking away. Okay? Which means they are, of course, able to hear that. And we know that the hadith, يتبع الميت ثلاثة, three things follow the deceased. أهله وماله وعمله. فيبقى واحد ويرجع اثنان. That three things follow the deceased: his family members, his wealth, and his actions. Two things will return and they won't stay. His family members are going to have to carry on living their lives. They're not going to stay there the whole years until it's their time. They're going to have to carry on, ikhwan. And that's why it's important and crucial for you to work, put forth good deeds. And your wealth and your status and all of that is going to come with you. Maybe your followers that you have and what have you now, that's we reach stage where we live life just for followers and people. It's going to come with you there. All of those that have followed you, maybe they will be there present. Maybe your following in terms of wealth and what have you will be there. It will reach, but it's not going to enter the grave with you. None of your wealth is going to enter your grave. None of your jewelry, none of your credentials or anything that you've achieved. None of it is going to help you in the grave. But all of that is going to return. Wallahi, only one thing, brothers. Always bear this in mind. Before you go to sleep every day, don't be so proud of what you've done and what you've achieved. You should think to yourself, you're just an atom's weight. You're just a dot in this dunya. You should see yourself that you're in constant deficiency with regards to the actions that you need to put forth, you haven't put forth. You should always see yourself that you're low in everything and you're sufficient in, and you're deficient in terms of that which you need to be doing as a Muslim. That's the way you should go to sleep, saying that I've not done enough, I need to do more. Always make istighfar, always ask Allah Azza wa Jal to aid you in doing better. And that will cause you, inshallah, to live a better life the next day. That's something that we need to do every single day. As we mentioned, Prophet ﷺ used to do it. The Prophet ﷺ used to make dua, Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. And this is the Prophet ﷺ. Oh, twister and turner of the hearts, keep my heart firm and steadfast upon the religion. So how about us, ikhwani? This is something that you should always question yourself. Because we live the fast life here in the West, everything is quick. We sometimes don't have time even to maybe even pray salah on time, let alone pray in the masajid. Because we're constantly working. We're not saying don't work. Allah mentioned in the Quran, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Don't forget your sustenance in this world. It's halal for you to have businesses, to have wealth and what. That's all good, as long as it does not distract you from the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. Why? Because it's good. Wallahi, I literally, it brings joy to my heart to see my fellow brothers and sisters being successful in things in this worldly life. It's a beauty to see that we're successful as Muslims. This should be the state. From the companions, they were tujjar, businessmen and what have you. But what's sad is to know that at the same time, they don't even have time with their Lord. The one that has given them everything, the sole purpose and why they exist in this dunya. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Verily, I did not create mankind and jinn except that they worship me alone. The sole purpose of why you exist is to worship Allah. Anything else is a means. Your family members, they're means of the sole purpose. Your wealth, means. Your friends, acquaintances, all of that is means of why you exist. Of course, we mentioned as well, استغفروا لأخيكم واسألوا له التثبيت. Prophet is telling us, ask for your brother, make dua for him, and ask Allah to aid him and keep him steadfast. فإنه الآن يسأل, because now he's being questioned. And this hadith, we know that it's authentic. Now let's get into the topic, ikhwani. And we mentioned before we mentioned the topic, we mentioned that visiting the grave is something that should be done according to the Sunnah as well. So if you have family members and you know they're going to maybe be at a time when it's difficult for them, women folk, I'm talking about women folk specifically, then tell them don't visit the grave. Because if they bring fitna, and this is from the means of some ulama see it, it's haram for women to visit the graveyard. Because of the fact that for them being patient at this moment of time is harder to keep themselves firm, to keep themselves away from wailing, from taking from their hairs and ripping and other acts of innovations that they do. So visiting the graveyard in terms of women split into three opinions. There are three opinions. The first one, that it is disliked. And this is from the school of thought of Shafi'i. He says that it is disliked. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, and he made cursed لعن الزوارات, okay, القبور. The Prophet ﷺ cursed the visitors of the grave, i.e. meaning the women folk. So from this they take this and say that it is disliked. Not that it's haram, they say it is disliked. Okay? The second opinion is that it is haram, completely haram. Why? They take the first hadith that we just mentioned, la'an Allah, and la'an is of course cursing, and nothing should be a curse except that it is haram. So they take this and they say that this is the reason why women should not visit the graveyards, because the Prophet ﷺ said it is haram. From the reasons, they wail, niyaha. From them as well, they, of course, maybe not now, or maybe it is something that you may not have seen, but it has happened, and some women folk do it, where they hit their cheeks and slap their cheeks and pull from their hair and do other acts. So this is from the means that it said it is haram for them completely to visit the graveyard. And also another reason is because they don't have a lot of patience in being able to maintain themselves in this state. And also because some of them scream and they start not just screaming but shouting on top of their lungs in, feeling sorry for their, and of course grieving at this moment of time, which of course is difficult, but it causes fitna for the rijal, for the men. It's a means of fitna, so saddan lid-dari'a, okay, to close off all means. This second opinion from the ulama, they say that it is, and this is for the Hanafiya and Shafi'iyya, they say that it is haram. The third opinion is that it is allowed. The third opinion is that it is allowed. What is the proof? And this is in the Malikiyya and Hanafiya, the Malikiyya school of thought and Hanafiya, they say it is allowed. They use the proof that أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم مر بامرأة تبكي. Prophet went by a woman and she was crying in the qabr. Okay, she was crying next to a graveyard. فقال, Prophet said to her, اتق الله واصبري. Prophet said to her, fear Allah and be patient. So he did not say to her, don't visit the graveyard or leave the graveyard. So this is the hadith that they used to say that it is allowed. Okay. Another hadith, which is reported by Burayda, which says, نهينا عن زيارة القبور فزوروها. Okay. The long hadith says, يعني إني قد أنهيتكم عن زيارة القبور فزوروها. That verily I have prohibited you from visiting the graves, but you can visit them. So this hadith says that it's a proof that in the past, Prophet told them not to visit, and then afterwards he told them that they can visit. And the last proof that we'll use, which is a longer hadith, which is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abi Malika, okay, that Aisha radiallahu anha came back from somewhere, أقبلت ذات يوم, she came back from somewhere that specific day, من المقابر, from the graveyards. فقلت لها, I said to her, يا أم المؤمنين, O mother of the believers, من أين أقبلتِ? Where did you come from? قالت من قبر أخي عبد الرحمن ibn Abi Bakr. I came from the graveyard of my brother عبد الرحمن, the son of my father Abu Bakr. فقلت لها أليس كان الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن زيارة القبور? So I said to her, didn't the Prophet ﷺ completely stop the women folk from visiting the graveyard and prohibit them from doing so? قالت نعم كان نهي ثم أمر بزيارتها. She said yes, in the beginning he did prohibit us from visiting the graveyard, and then he allowed us to visit. So from these we can see that they split into three different opinions. Of course it depends, but if you know yourself, their brother, your wife or your daughter or your mother, what have you, they cannot control themselves and they're going to bring about fitna, then it's best for you to advise them to not visit the graveyard, specifically at the point when they are doing the burial, because it causes fitna and it disrupts the actual burial of the deceased that has died. Also from the other points that we mentioned as well, Ikhwani, is that it is from the sunnah to hasten. Okay, so write this down as well. It's from the sunnah to hasten the actual burial, to not delay weeks and months and what have you. Many people, maybe they die here and they want to be buried back home. I know probably that's going to be a question. The ulama, of course, don't say that it is haram, but they say it is better for the person where they die to hasten to bury them. This is from the sunnah, that you hasten to bury the deceased. And if they are a mu'min and they are a believer, and in authentic hadith it's mentioned there, فَأَسْرِعُوا بِي فَأَسْرِعُوا بِي. The hadith, it's long hadith, but giving you the meaning is that it says that the deceased will say, of course the person carrying the deceased cannot hear, but they will say, hasten to what? Putting me in my grave, I want to meet my Lord. So from the sunnah is that you hasten towards burying the deceased. Burying the deceased. As for the reward, and this is something also that one should do, is that if someone has died, let's say مثلا my family member has died, it's something that would be good if I can tell the people to try and come and attend, because it's the hadith that mentions ما من رجل مسلم يموت. There is no single man who is a Muslim that dies. فيقوم على جنازته 40 رجلا, and then 40 people attend his grave and his funeral. لا يشركون بالله شيئا إلا شفعهم الله فيه. رواه Muslim. There is no man that dies, okay, and 40 men that are Muslims that did not commit shirk. There were people upon Tawheed. They came and attended the burial, except that Allah Azza wa Jal will accept their intercession for him. And of course, we know this is the same ruling for the woman if she dies. So, point being is that also it should be something that you should try at most best to inform those that are able to attend the burial to attend. What dua should one make when they're there and the burial has finished, the whole burial has finished and the person has been buried? You should make dua. There is no specific dua, but rather you should ask Allah the Almighty to help the deceased in terms of answering the questions, to help the deceased in terms of widening their grave, making their grave be from the gardens of paradise, making them be from the people of paradise. Ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make them, to forgive their sins, to forgive their shortcomings, to aid them in that hard time. So from these du'as and other types, there is no specific one, but the Prophet said, فَإِنَّهُ يُسْأَلَ الْآنِ فَاسْأَلُ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ أَنْ يُثَبِّتُهُ. The Prophet said in the hadith that he's being questioned now, so ask Allah the Almighty to keep him firm and steadfast. Meaning, at the time when we know, and we're going to mention the hadith, when the two angels come. So this is from the things that you should do with regards to the graveyard. And we'll mention the hadith, and inshallah we'll mention a couple of questions and we'll answer the questions, and then inshallah we'll give a chance to the brothers that need to ask any questions, inshallah. That which Allah makes it easy for us, we'll try our utmost best to answer them. Ikhwani, please, I ask you from the bottom of my heart to try your utmost best to just listen to this hadith with your hearts, not with your ears. Because there's a difference when you listen to something with your ears and you're not there, busy on your phone or other places, or you're calculating your next investment and what have you, and then when you listen with your heart, because wallahi, it's something that I ask Allah the Almighty to make it be from the means that testify for us and to aid us, because everyone is going to go through this, Muslim or non-Muslim. Everyone is going to go through this. The hadith is reported and Barra, and it's a bit long, but please be patient and have patience with me. And Barra radiyallahu anhu, Barra, may Allah be pleased with him, he said, خرجنا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في جنازة رجل من الأنصار. We went to the janazah and we witnessed it with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم from the companions from the Ansar, meaning the people of Medina. فانتهينا إلى قبر ولما يلحد فجلس رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. So we finished with the janazah in terms of the lahad that we just showed all of you. And then we sat down around حوله كأنما على رؤوسنا الطير. We sat down around the Prophet ﷺ, and it was as if the birds were on top of our heads. وفي يده عود ينكت به, and in his hand he had a piece of wood, and he was drawing on the floor with it. ينكت به فرفع رأسه, and then he put his head high to the sky. فقال استعيذوا بالله من عذاب القبر ثلاث مرات. And he said to the companion, he said to us, ask Allah Azza wa Jal to aid you and to protect you from the punishment of the grave 3 times, أو مرتين, or 2 times. ثم قال إن العبد المؤمن إذا كان في انقطاع من الدنيا. And if a person from the believers is in the last stages of leaving this worldly life, وإقبال من الآخرة نزل إليه من السماء. And he's about to start the afterlife. The angels نزل إليه من السماء ملائكة بيض الوجوه, that the angels descend upon him. Okay, white faces. This is the believer. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us from them, Ya Rabbi. بيض الوجوه كأن وجوههم الشمس, as if their faces is literally like the sun. حتى يجلسون منه مد البصر معهم كفن من أكفان الجنة. And they will come down with the kafan, okay, the garments that which we use today from Jannah. وحنوط من حنوط الجنة. يجيء الملك الموت فيقعد عند رأسه فيقال أيتها النفس الطيبة أخرجي إلى مغفرة الله. So this is towards the soul being taken up. When the angel of death will come to that believer, and they will say, "Oh good soul, أيها النفس الطيبة, oh good soul, أخرجي إلى مغفرة من الله ورضوانه." That come out to the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. فتخرج, and then the soul will come out. تسيل كما تسيل القطرة من في السقاء. And it will come out as if the drop, the drops that drop onto water, it will be the same thing. It will come out so smoothly and so swiftly and so quickly. فإذا أخذوها لم يدعوها في يده طرفة عين حتى يأخذوها فيجعلوها في ذلك الكفن. And then when they will take it, they will put it inside that specific garment. وذلك الحنوط فيخرج منه كأطيب نفحة مسك وجدت على وجه الأرض. And then it will they'll put on it a smell. It will be a beautiful scent that will come out as if it would be the best scent that will be placed on earth. And then فيصعدون فلا, and then they'll go up with it. They will ascend with that soul up. فلا يمرون بها على ملأ من الملائكة. They don't go past a single huge gathering of angels إلا قالوا, except that the angels will say ما هذا الروح الطيب, what is this beautiful good soul. فيقولون هذا فلان بن فلان. They will say, the ones carrying that deceased, the soul, they will say this is so and so. بأحسن أسمائه التي كان يسمى بها في الدنيا. They would say this is so and so, and they would say that this is so and so, and they would name the name of the person with the good names that they would be known for in this dunya. حتى ينتهي بها إلى السماء الدنيا, until they will get to the first heaven. سماء الدنيا meaning the first part. فيفتح لهم فيستقبله من كل سماء مقبرها إلى السماء التي تليها حتى ينتهي به إلى السماء السابعة. So they will go into stages until we reach the seventh heaven. قال فيقول الله اكتبوا كتاب عبدي في عليين في السماء السابعة وأعيدوه إلى الأرض. And then Allah will say, write for my servant in the book عليين في السماء السابعة, in the seventh heaven, and then return the soul back to the earth. فإذا منها خلقتهم وفيها أعيدهم ومنها أخرجهم تارة أخرى. The verse meaning they were created and they were taken from this dunya and they will return in this dunya, meaning they will die and then they will be resurrected another time. فتعاد روحه في جسده. So at this moment of time, of course, his body is still in the grave, but his soul is being taken up. And then they will return his soul into his body. This is the mu'min we're talking about. And then after this stage, وَيَأْتِيهِ مَلَكَانِ. This is the important part, brothers. So please listen. وَيَأْتِيهِ مَلَكَانِ. Two angels will come to the body. And of course now the soul is there, put back into the body. فَيُجْلِسَانَهُ فَيَقُولَانِ لَهُ مَنْ رَبُّكَ. And then they will make the body stand up. They will make the body sit up. Sorry, not stand up. They will make the body yajlisan. They will make the body sit up. And they will ask the body, who is your Lord? So ask yourselves, brothers, do you know who your Lord is in totality, properly? Do you know his names and attributes? Because on this moment, at this moment of time, these are the three questions that many of us, maybe we've heard the book, maybe we've become sick and tired of it. Why Allah knows best, Al-Usul al-Thalatha. It's a book that was written just in order for us to understand the three questions that will be asked each and every one of us when we enter our grave. This is the state, Ikhwani, this is the time. The angels, the two will come and they will ask, they will sit this deceased body that no one can benefit or help at this moment of time except what they put forth. They will ask this deceased, Man Rabbuk. If they were a believer, they will say, فَيَقُولْ رَبِّي اللَّهِ. My Lord is Allah. And then they will ask the second question, فَيَقُولَانِ لَهُ مَا دِينِكَ. They will ask them, what is your religion? فَيَقُولْ دِينِي الْإِسْلَامِ. He will say, my deen, my religion is al-Islam. فَيَقُولَانِ لَهُ مَا هَذَا الرَّجُلُ الَّذِي بُعِثَ فِيكُمْ. Who was this man that was sent to you? فَيَقُولْ هُوَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. صلى الله عليه وسلم. فيقول ما عملك؟ فيقول قرأت كتاب الله. They will say فيقول ما علمك؟ فيقول قرأت كتاب الله وآمنت به وصدقت به. And then they will say to him, who taught you this? How do you know? And he will respond that I read the book of Allah and I believed in it. And I also believe that it was true. فينادي مناد من السماء أن صدق عبدي فأفرشوه من الجنة. And then there will be a call that will call from the heavens. Verily my servant has spoken the truth. فأفرشوه من الجنة. Allah Azza wa told them. So what? أفرشوه من الجنة. Meaning layer it out and cover him with the garments of Jannah. Layer it out meaning spread him out. أفرشوه, spread him out from Jannah. Meaning widen his grave. وألبسوه من الجنة. Meaning clothe him the clothing of paradise. So now, brothers, we're talking about the hayat al-barzakhiyya, that afterlife that will happen to each and every one of us. Everyone will go through this. وَافْتَحُوا لَهُ بَابًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. And also open a door from the doors of Jannah. So at this moment, Ikhwani, if you live the life upon Islam, you implemented Tawheed, you feared Allah as much as you could, then a door would open for you from the doors of Jannah. So of course at this moment of time, many will ask, yes, you will know. This is from the signs that if you're at the stage and no one knows except you when you're there. Your family members don't know what's happening to you when you're in your grave. فيأتيه من طيبها وروحها ويفسح له في قبره مد بصره ويأتيه رجل. And then at this moment of time, there will be made so much space for him. So much space will be made for the deceased at this moment of time. And then وَيَأْتِيهِ رَجُلٌ. At this moment of time, Ikhwani, it hasn't finished the questioning and what have you, and the whole process. After he'll be able to see that which his eyes can see in terms of all of the wide space, even though for us that which is apparent is small. It will say وَيَأْتِيهِ رَجُلٌ حُسْنَ الْوَجْهِ. A man will come and appear. Very good face, very good looking face. حسن الثياب, طيب الريح, good clothing, good smell. فيقول أبشر بالذي يسرك هذا. And then he will say to him, glad tidings to that which brings, goodness towards you. الذي كنت توعد, meaning glad tidings to that which you are promised. This is the wa'd. فيقول ومن أنت. So if you are in this state, Ya Abdullah, you will ask, who are you? Because you don't know what's going on. You'll be like, who are you? This man is coming and saying to you glad tidings. And then you're going to question and say, who are you? فوجهك الوجه الذي يجيء بالخير فيقول. And of course the face can see that it's a good face. You can see it's a good face. فيقول أنا عملك الصالح. الله أكبر. He will respond and say, I am your good deeds. I am your good deeds. I am your good deeds. So ask yourselves, have you put forth good deeds enough to be from those that are going to be in this state? I'm not telling you lies or things that I've heard or stories. This is the hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. أنا عملك الصالح. That's what he would say. That's what that man would respond to you in your grave. If you have been a believer, may Allah make us all be from those that are going to be from these people. And then afterwards, فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَقِمِ السَّاعَةِ رَبِّي أَقِمِ السَّاعَةِ. And then you in that state would say, oh my Lord, make the day of resurrection now, because you want to meet your Lord, because you've seen this, and already you have that state that you know that it's only khair for you, inshallah. So therefore you would what? You would say, this is what's going to be said, أَقِمِ السَّاعَةِ. You would say, at that moment of time when you're in the grave, you would say, oh my Lord, make the day of judgment be today. Because you want to meet your Lord, brothers. Because you want to meet your Lord in that state. You're seeing your actions right in front of you. This is when it's going to matter. Not all of those business transactions that you've been, living your life, maybe in haram, consuming haram. But what's going to benefit you is you being at that state where you now can see your actions. As they say, words are just actions mean more than words. And this is the state, ikhwani, wallahi, when you're there in that grave, 6 foot under, pitch black, no one can benefit you. And we know the hal of them, of the Malikan, the meaning the two angels, Munkar wa Nakir. We know that they don't smile, and they're very fearsome. So at this moment of time, when you put forth the good deeds and this, you have a chance. As Ali ibn Abi Talib would say to the companions, he would say to the companions, he would say, "Kun min abna'i al-akhirah wa la takunu min abna'i al-dunya." Be from the children of the hereafter, meaning live the life always trying to bear in mind that you're going to leave this world, ikhwani. Wallahi, it's not worth it. It's not worth it fighting over money. Cutting off the ties of your family members due to money. Inheritance, it's a time when inheritance comes in, fighting and indulging in haram, trying to buy properties, investing in haram, to have that flashy car, flashy house. Wallahi, it's not going to benefit you. We're not saying to you don't have it. Once again, I'm saying to you don't make it a means to distract you from worshiping your Lord. Put forth good deeds. Make that be your main objective, your main thing. And then afterwards, that which you can consume in halal, do it. But make the main thing be the dunya, be the akhirah, not the dunya. Make the main thing be the akhirah. Because when it's there and it's in front of you, wallahi, no one's going to help you. Your children's not going to help you then. Your wife is not going to enter the grave with you. Your sibling, your parents are not going to enter the grave with you. It's going to be just you. Just like you came into this dunya alone, you're going to leave alone. And you're going to be resurrected alone. And before that, you're going to be questioned alone. And you're going to stand in front of your Lord, Jalla Jalaluhu, alone. So question yourself. Ask yourself really and truly, am I a good Muslim? Have I done enough? Is it enough? Because this was the hal of the companions. They were always in constant disbelief with regards to their actions being accepted. And therefore it pushed them, it made them do more. اغتنم خمسة قبل خمس. You still have, even if you're old, you still have health. Some people, they're wishing they can make one more sajda. They're wishing they can pray once more. They can ask their Lord. Those in their graves, that's one of the things they want to do. If they're to come back, they'll to make one more sajda, to pray once more. Right now you're alive, Allah has given you the opportunity. Don't delay salah because you've got work and be like, but akhi, but this, but that, I've got work, it's too difficult. And then you pray all your salawat in the end when it's Salat al-Isha. So that means you've given more importance to the dunya, worldly affairs, and to your manager or to your wealth. Some of us today, wallahi, is sad. We worship our desires. We're literally in constant worship of our desires when we should be worshipping Allah the Almighty. So that's the first part, ikhwani, to finish the hadith, and we'll end there with that. If it's a non-believer, ikhwani, meaning someone that lived a life other than the state of Islam, what's going to be the hal? How is it going to be? Then the angels that will come down will be angels that are dark and gloomy. They will be the angels that will come down. The angel of death will approach That person, the one that disbelieved, the one that didn't live the state of Islam, the one that didn't have a good ending. يا أيها النفس الخبيثة اخرجي إلى سخط الله وغضبه. Oh soul, oh bad soul, come out to the anger of Allah Azza wa Jal and His wrath. And then it will be taken out, and we know that the hadith mentions the way he will be taken out, the soul will be dragged out, will be like if you have barbed wire, trying to take out a barbed wire from a small, something that is enclosed around, and it's like, you can't even take the barbed, imagine this is the barbed wire, and you're trying to take it out, and it'll be ripped out. That's how the soul will be taken from a non-believer. So painful that it's beyond imagination, ikhwan. May Allah protect us from that. So of course he'll go through the exact same stage, the way they will be taken up and they would ask who is this, and they will be said this is the person, and they will be mentioned the names that he was known, and he would have a bad smell and what have you. And it will be said, don't open the doors of Jannah to them, meaning this deceased. And write from them in terms of the lower stages, meaning in the book. And then it will be told to return the soul back to the deceased, to the body. And then afterwards it will be said, same questions. The Malakan, they will come and they will sit this person up. So it's not just for the Muslims, this will happen to everyone, believer or non-believer. As for the non-believer, what will be said, he'll be placed up, or she'll be placed up, sat upright. And they will ask, Man Rabbuk? And they will say, La adri. He will stutter and be like, I don't know. And then they will ask the next question, Ma dinuk? La adri. I don't know. The next question, Ma hadha al-rajul alladhi bu'itha fikum? Who's this man that was sent to you? La adri. Sami'tu an-nas yaqul. I don't know. I heard people say such and such. And then what would happen? They will bring down. A person will come down. And the grave will enclose upon them and will what? Squeeze that person. It won't be the same as a believer. And then a person will come down, dark face, with a smell, netted smell, completely disgusting smell. And then they will stand in front of the deceased and say, who are you? He will say, who are you? And he will say, I am your bad deeds. And then of course they will be punished. They will be punished. And that's when there will be the beginning of the punishment. And at this moment of time, the person will say, Rabbi la taqum as-sa'a. Oh my Lord, do not make their judgment come. Because at this moment, brothers, they don't want to meet their Lord. Because they know that nothing awaits them except for punishment. Nothing awaits them except for punishment. So hearing this, brothers, these are the three questions, and this is the hal of the person's life in terms of their barzakh, in terms of the way they will be, in terms of them being in the grave. So may Allah Azza wa Jalla make it easy for all of us to live a good life and to have a good ending and to meet our Lord with Allah being pleased with us. Ikhwani, from the questions that would, the first question was sisters asking, can a sister lead the Salat al-Janazah? Of course, we know the answer is no, because women do not lead Salat, generally speaking, so therefore, same as the Salat al-Janazah. A man has to lead the Salat al-Janazah. A man has to lead the Salat al-Janazah. In terms of washing a non-believer, then of course it's mentioned that it is not allowed to wash a non-believer, because they're not Muslim. Okay, they're not a Muslim. And of course, Allah mentions in the Quran, وَلَا تَصَلِّ عَلَى أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَى قَبْرِهِ. This ayah. Do not visit their graveyard, do not pray over them. Do not pray over them. How about the one that has died as a martyr? What is the hukm? What do we do? Then it's mentioned here that you do not wash the deceased, or we should say not deceased, the martyr that has taken part in battlefield. Okay? And also you do not pray over them as well. Okay, so you do not wash the deceased, the martyr, and you do not pray over them, but rather what you do is you bury them. As the Prophet, and the hadith is the Prophet ﷺ أمر قتل أحد بدفنهم بدمائهم ولم يصلي عليهم ولم يغسلوا. Prophet ﷺ, when the people died in the battle of Uhud, he ordered for them to be buried, and he did not wash them wash anything from them, and he did not pray over them, but rather he just ordered them to be buried, and that was it. And we don't need to go into this because we know, of course, the reason behind it. This is something that they will be resurrected in the state. For those that are wondering, they'll be resurrected in the state as takriman lahum. Okay, you know, it's like to show him, like it's what's the meaning of takrim in English? Takrim. Yeah, respect. It's like respect and honoring them, respecting them, because it was a specific something which is something heavy in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's an honorable position in terms of that kind of death. Also, Ikhwani, if you're in a state where there is more than one person that has died, for example, so many people have died and there isn't enough space in that land where we're in to bury them, what do we do? Is it allowed to bury more than one person in a grave, an actual grave? Then the ruling is that it is allowed if it's necessity, but it shouldn't be done because everyone should be buried in their own grave. But if it happens so where there isn't enough space in that specific land, then it is allowed or permissible to bury the deceased, you know, in one specific grave, like a big place. As which happened in which battle? Does anyone know? Which battle, Ikhwani? I'll repeat the question again. There was a battle where the Prophet ﷺ had with his companions, and there wasn't enough space, and also the companions were tired, and they were buried, more than one person in the grave. Which battle is that? Huh? Khandaq, Uhud, Badr, Khaybar, Tabuk, which one? Huh? Okay, that's going to be homework for all of you, Ikhwan. For those that don't know, search up if you can. It's going to be homework. I don't want to tell you the answer. But that specific battle was a proof that it is allowed to bury a deceased, meaning more than one in a grave. And then how should it be? Who should go first? The Prophet told us in authentic hadith, when the Prophet was present at that battle, and he asked, before he would place them, in terms of this one's going to be first and second and third, he said, سألهم من منهم أحفظ لكتاب الله. He asked them, who has memorized the Quran the most? Who knows the Quran the most? And then it was pointed, this one knows more than that one. And then the Prophet will start with the one that knows the Quran more. Look at that, Ikhwani. Also showing you that the position of the person who memorized Quran is also elevated. So the one that knows most Quran should be the one that should be hastened towards burying first. Obviously, it depends on the space. So I can't specifically tell you. It depends on the space and the situation because everyone is different. Because, like for example, in that specific battlefield, for example, and I don't want to say the battle, but that's homework for all of you. But that specific battle, Ikhwani, the Prophet ﷺ placed them in that grave, and there was a specific way, of course. But how and what, it depends on the scenario. But just the reason I've mentioned it as point of benefit is that it is allowed. It is allowed. Anyone else, if I have any questions, I think that's. Of course, that which we mentioned is sunnah, that we take the person out of that which they're in and you place them in the kafir the way it's supposed to be done, and then you place them in. Okay, Ikhwani, the brother mentioned something good as well. Let's say it's a time of a pandemic like that which happened, a couple of years back of Corona. Then, of course, at this specific time, the hukum is completely different. If you're not able to get to your beloved one this season, there's specific people being appointed because of the virus spreading and what have you, then that's allowed. As long as you're able to pray salah, if it's allowed, you pray salah. But it's not a thing where, once again, Ikhwan, this shows that Islam is a religion of mercy and everything is easy. You don't have to overcomplicate stuff and say, no, I need to do the sunnah and do the kafir. And if it's a thing where it's a pandemic, and you're not being given permission to actually wash the deceased, then of course we know that you have wanted to, you had the intention, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, but there's a specific calamity that has come, and you're not able to do that which you need to do. Okay, so in these scenarios, of course, it's completely different. And also we mentioned regarding the tayammum. If needed, then you can do tayammum over the deceased. That which we use today, yeah, generally speaking, many countries they have it, but it's similar to this. It's like a bedsheet. So it's not a specific one, for example, where you have to use specific material and what have you. No, it's just something that you can use whatever is easy. So if you've got a bedsheet or you have the actual one, but there is no difference. So you can use whatever is easy. Once again, Islam makes everything easy. Alhamdulillah, our deen is very, very easy. Any other questions, Ikhwani? Anyone have any other questions? Yes. But that's what I just mentioned. If it's possible to take them out and it's not going to cause them harm. Say again? I recently went to a janazah of a brother and he wasn't in a casket at all. He wasn't in a coffin. So, some councils. Okay. Oh, in the northern. Okay, yeah. So, of course, if it's something that you can't take the body out, then of course, yeah, you still place them towards. But of course, they've been washed, correct? Yeah, but they have. Yeah. So, if that's the case, then place them towards the exact same way we did it. Place them towards the qibla. As much as you can do. Allah says in the Quran, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah as much as you can. Meaning, do that which you can in order to implement the sunnah. As much as you can. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah Azza wa Jalla doesn't burden a soul more than it can bear. Yes. Yeah, we did it where we entered the position from, how did we do it? When it was the head first, right? Yes. Yeah, from the feet side, we did it, yeah. So that's the way we should bring it in from that side. And obviously, there's two people that are there. Barakallah, you just reminded me of something. I can't actually. Can I use this to get up? Can I use the other one? You just reminded me of something that we didn't mention. Just as a point of benefit for those who didn't mention it, but so so if it's a female, okay, and if it's a sister, I'm only mentioning it for the brothers so that let's say you have a woman folk and they're not able to attend tomorrow's session, or they're not going to be here, or just generally for your own knowledge and a point of benefit. When we're placing the deceased in the grave as a brother, of course, if it's allowed, obviously here in Northern you said it's not, you take them out of that specific thing they're in, whether it's a coffin or have you anything surrounding, you take them out with the shroud, the coffin, and you place them in the grave facing the qibla. Now, Ikhwani, that which you forgot, may Allah reward the brother, if it's a sister, then same thing. That which is advised is that it should be only the maharim carrying her. Is that clear, Ikhwani? It should only be the maharim. Because of course, many of us want to get the reward in carrying the deceased, because there is a reward in it. But if it's a sister, then fear Allah as much as you can. And have respect to the family members. Because if it's a sister, in Islam, you shouldn't be making contact with her and what have you. So therefore, when she's alive, therefore when she's dead, same thing. And that's from the beauties of Islam. If it's a sister, then let the male maharim relatives carry her in, and she should be covered with an extra garment completely. So that's why I'm going to use this. Let's say if it's a sister and we're carrying her and she's being brought to the graveyard, and this is the grave where she's going to enter, she should be covered completely on top. And then two brothers will enter the grave from maharim, my relatives. When they enter the grave and take her in, receive her in, then she should still be covered, completely, still be covered. Meaning I'm talking about, let's say there's a covering here, just to make it clear, Ikhwani. She's covered, she should be covered again. like this. Can I get 2 or 3 brothers just to hold each end and hold it on top of me? So before you hold it on top of me, let's say she's going, I'm in the grave now, and they're bringing her, and she's right here underneath, okay? She should be covered. When she's covered at this moment of time, I've entered the grave. I should go underneath and place her in order to respect and honor her as a sister in Islam. And this is from the blessings of Islam. So I should go like this, okay? And then as I go underneath, I take her in like this, I place her in, and of course, she'll be placed in the same way, facing the Qibla, and that's something that I just wanted to mention. Jazakumullah khair. Exactly, yeah, exactly. Okay, so here obviously, as the brother mentioned, up north, the bodies are stay and remain in the coffin, but for those that don't, which is generally speaking most places outside north, up north and also outside of UK, we should cover the system. Oh, no one here that, oh. Okay, you guys are completely different. Subhanallah. Okay, in that case, obviously, something that is beyond your, control, and you can't control it, so just leave it as is. But obviously, in London, the way we do it, the family members are allowed to enter the grave only if they wish to have someone that works in the graveyard. They can also enter. But generally speaking, it would be a family member to carry the sister in and then place her all the brother. And this also is where we mentioned, I'm not going to dive into it again, but it's from the means of respecting the sister that she should be fully covered. She should be fully covered. What do you say to the one that has, from the family members of deceased? What do you say to them? The Azza is known that you ask Allah Azza wa Jal, اصبر واحتسب ولا نقول إلا ما يرضي ربنا. Be patient, persevere this hard time, and we shouldn't say anything except for that which pleases Allah the Almighty. Just remind them to be patient, make dua for them, to make it easy for them. One thing that, of course, many times we see that a lot of people fall into with regards to visiting them. Let's say you're related to them or you know them, you visit them and you create food and you make food and order food from restaurant and this, that. Funny, we have to bear this in mind, the person has died. It should be a time of grief and sorrow and remembering akhirah and trying to better ourselves. So we might fall into a state of celebrating instead of being in a state of sadness by ordering food, and many cultures they do this. And some of the Salaf in the past would see this from the forms of bid'ah, from the forms of innovation, ordering food and staying there. Some family members and some cultures, they have it where people sleep in the house of the deceased and they have to order food, and then at that moment of time, the family goes into debt. Or they waste hundreds and hundreds of pounds ordering food to people that are there. When it should be a time when you're taking off that grief from them. You try and take off that stress. So you should, if needed, you go and help, make dua, maybe with the children if you know, and then you leave. You don't stay for long. So don't be a burden in that specific time when they're grieving. Another thing as well that many women folk do, when they meet the deceased, as soon as they give them salam, they start crying and weeping and doing all of this stuff. All of these things, ikhwani, is something we should remind our women folk, because many of them, they don't know it's bad. It's just a culture to them. Or they think they're helping by crying and then also helping that sister cry, which is going to, no, it's also an innovation. You're not supposed to do such things. So we should remind our women folk that at this moment of time, they need to also maintain themselves. They need to maintain themselves. Is it allowed to visit the grave of a non-Muslim? Is it allowed in Islam? The Prophet said in the hadith, استأذنت ربي أن أستغفر لأمي فلم يأذن لي. Okay, the Prophet said that I asked Allah the Almighty if I can ask for forgiveness for my mother, for Allah to forgive my mother, and it wasn't given to me, it wasn't granted to me. واستأذنته أن أزور قبرها فأذن لي. And I asked Allah if I can visit the graveyard, and it was given and granted permission to me. Prophet here in this hadith is a proof that it's allowed to visit a non-believer's grave, even if they're related to you. It's allowed to visit them. Of course, we did say it's allowed to pray on them and what have you, but it's allowed for you to visit the graveyard of the non-believers. And also as well, even if they're not, it's a means as well that will remind you of death, because reminding of death, it doesn't have to be that it's a Muslim that died. Just them being from those that have died, it's also a means of, you remembering death. We live in the West, so I'll touch on this point. Maybe our neighbor has lost someone, and what have you. Maybe they're not Muslim, they've lost someone beloved to them, and you're close to them, or they're your neighbor or colleague at work, or someone at school, what have you, uni work. Then it's not allowed for you to ask Allah to forgive you. Sometimes you see many times Muslims do that. Ask, I'll ask God for you to forgive them. And this is not allowed, but rather you should feel and show the sign of sympathy, and that, say kind words that will make them feel better. It's so sad to hear. Say things that will make them show, and it will show that you care about what has happened to them. Because the teaching of Islam is that we should have mannerisms. As Prophet says, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I've been sent down to perfect mannerisms. So we should also try and do that as well. Try and say something, even if getting them something as well, it's not a problem in Islam, because you're helping relieve their time of them breathing. In terms of saying that though, for disbeliever, Allah knows best, but that which I know that you can say kind words to them, because they're not a believer. So this usually goes in for those that are, but in terms of if you mean it as the context of just the fact that someone has gone, yeah, but of course the main thing is not to say dua for them. Stay away from anything that could lead to something that was not related from the Prophet ﷺ. It was not related from the Prophet ﷺ. Is that it, or any more questions?
Is it from the Sunnah to, when you fill the grave, do 3 handfuls?
Yeah, that's from the Sunnah as well. Yeah, you could do 3 handfuls, or you could do more as well. Of course, Sunnah, of course, of 3 handfuls. That which is Sunnah, you should do that as well. And also, Ikhwani, the brother mentioned a good point. I think you mentioned, if not, that you should try your utmost best to help out in putting some sort of turab or soil in the grave. Because many brothers, they just come and they stay there, but try as well to get involved, because there's a reward within it. There's a reward within it as well. As for visiting the grave afterwards, Ikhwani, you can do so as well. You can visit the grave after years by, whether it's your relative or whatever. And what's important as well is to try utmost best, if you see a family member, advise them in a good way. If they come and leave flowers and other things of shirk, use wisdom. Don't just tell them this is haram, you can't do it. No one likes to be told such a way anything. I wouldn't like to be told in a harsh way. If someone was to come, advise me in a corner, pull me away, speak to me with gently with nice words, it will be easier for my heart to accept it. So therefore, it should be the same as well with you, with regards to advising someone older than you as well, is different to the way you would speak to your own children. So try always use wisdom, Ikhwani. This is how the Prophet ﷺ was, and that's why he was the best of mankind and the most beloved. And that's why we know in terms of when he used to go visiting, we mentioned earlier the benefits of visiting the grave. I'll add another one. The benefits of visiting the grave, Muslim or non-Muslim, let's talk about the non-Muslims. It's also beneficial for you to visit to visit the sick of a non-Muslim, because it could be a means of you giving them down. As Prophet did with the Jew, and he became Muslim and entered Islam and died upon the state of Islam. So use the opportunity also, if you can, visit the one that you know, maybe your colleague or what have you, that is not a Muslim, and explain it to them. At the end of the day, Ikhwan, you have to bear in mind that they're human beings as well. But maybe they haven't seen that which for them is sufficient enough to know that there's a Lord and what have you. Just give them da'wah, be kind. And the means of da'wah sometimes could be just with your actions, wallah. You don't know that sometimes just your actions could be enough to actually guide someone else without you even uttering the word. As Umar ibn Khattab, he mentioned to his companions, he said, "Ud'u an-nas bis-samt." Guide the people and give them da'wah with silence. They asked, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, kayf naf'al dhalik?" How can we do that, O Amir al-Mu'mineen? He said, "Bi akhlaqikum," with your mannerisms. So that's also something that we should bear in mind. Another one, I just remembered, if a child dies and they are less than 120 days, there is no ghusl, there is no janazah, there is no nothing. Why? Because they don't have any soul blown into them. If they don't have any soul blown into them, then you don't pray salat al-janazah, you don't wash them and what have you. However, if they die and they're beyond 120 days, okay, like for example stillbirth, as we know them, then you can pray salat al-janazah and what have you. Okay, if it's stillbirth. Okay, meaning if they're past the stage of them being the soul blown into, but they were born dead, stillbirth. So that's allowed. But if it's before that, then there is no need. Why? Because the ulama mentioned that they are just basically nutfa wa alaqa wa mudghah, pieces of flesh and what have you. So there is no soul blown into them. So therefore, they don't take the ruling of you praying salah over that specific child. And of course, we know that the benefit is that if a child dies before the age of puberty, then they will be from those that will intercede for their parents in the day of judgment. Okay? They will be from those that will intercede for their child in the day of judgment. Another benefit, Ikhwani, that I wanted to add is that for those that have children, raise your children to have love for the deen of Islam, to have an attachment to the religion of Islam. Especially living here in the West, wallahi, it's difficult. I'm young myself, but I know for a fact it's much harder now as a child, teenager growing up than it was for me when I was growing up. And then let's say someone that's 20 years, 30 years older than me. As generations go, and as we get closer to the end of the day, it's going to get only harder. So try and give them the beauty of Islam. Explain to them. Many of us, we have this method of teaching them what Islam is by telling them you have to do this. If you don't do this, you're going to get punished. If you don't do this, the ulama, they mentioned something that's benefit. Prophet ﷺ said in authentic hadith. Let's forget the ulama. Let's go back to our best role model. Prophet ﷺ said in authentic hadith, "Irhamun nas, yarhamukum man fis sama. Irhamu man fil ard, yarhamukum man sama." Have mercy upon the one that is on the earth, the one that is in the heavens will have mercy on you. And then the ulama, they explain that right now, specifically, if you live in a time when there's so many things that are available and accessible, especially to the children, to the young ones, now we have Instagram, TikTok, whatnot, and everything else that's available for them, quick access, then try and not be from those that tell them you can't do this and this and this and this and this. But don't just do that, because then anyone that, and it's known, of course, every single thing that is not allowed or has been blocked off or secluded, there's always this sense and this urge to want to know what it is, to want to get to it. And that's how children are, generally speaking. They want to know what that thing is that you said to them they can't do. Eventually they're going to do it, without doubt. So instead of you saying they can't do this and this and this and this, say to them, don't do this, but rather, I've got this for you, I've got that. Give them a million options and then tell them don't do this. So therefore, you're telling them they can't do one thing, but you're giving them a million options to do other things. And then keep it like that. Why I'm mentioning this is if you build them, their foundations, with the love of Islam, and you try and explain to them what Islam is, why they should pray, why they should stay away from this, why if it's young girl growing up and what have you, why they should cover, why they should pray salah, why they should be good and what have you. If they know the reason, when they grow up and you're not there and you've taught them, and you make dua for them. That's another thing as well. Supplicate for your children, for Allah to guide them. Because guidance is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jalla, not me and you. If you do this, then inshallah when they grow up and you enter your grave, they will be the ones that will benefit you. They will benefit you when you're in your beginning stage of akhirah. They'll make dua for you. And that's something that can benefit you. Something that you didn't do, meaning it's not your action, but rather it was an action that you gave to your children and something you taught them and you aided them in the dunya, so they're going to aid you when you started your akhirah. Any other questions? We mentioned that. We said لا تصلي عليهم ولا تقوم على أحد منهم. يعني as Allah mentioned in the Quran, ولا تقوم على أحد ولا تصلي عليهم. But we should not bury the non-believers. Meaning, it's not something that Muslims should do in terms of the non-believers. We should not partake in that specific proceedings with regards to the burial. Okay? With regards to the burial. And if that's it, inshallah, we'll complete. Yeah. Barakallah. The brother mentioned an important point. I think we missed out. As soon as we mentioned regarding that the deceased can hear the footsteps, right? So that's when it should be. If you have the capabilities to stay as long as you can, then you should stay as long as you can. Just making dua for the deceased. Why? Because Prophet says in the hadith that make dua for your brother. Okay? فَاسْأَلُوا لَهُ التَّثْبِيتِ أَخِيكُمْ فَإِنَّهُ الْآنِ يُسْأَلُ. Because verily now he's being questioned. So when you leave, the questions would have probably finished. But at that moment of time, then you should ask Allah the Almighty to forgive him and all the other du'as that you can make. So it's better then, there and then, at the grave, before you leave. Because the last one that leaves, as soon as the last one leaves, that's when that's it. Oh yes. The brother mentioned with regards to some hadith that mentioned with regards to when you're putting the deceased inside the grave, you can recite some ayat that is reminding you of Akhirah and that you're going to meet your Lord, that's okay. But what is not allowed is reciting ayat in terms of trying to benefit the deceased, making your intention that you're reciting the Quran to benefit the deceased. But if it's something like the brother mentioned in terms of, you know how sometimes you find someone that's inside the grave and they're receiving the body, they recite ayat, you know, kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. Some, you know, recite ayat that's going to also make you remember as well, make you at that stage where you're actually remembering that what you're doing is that you're doing something where you could be next. But this, of course, is different to that which the scholars say you cannot recite ayat and Quran and stand there in order to intercede for the believer. This is not something that we reported on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes.
Dua after the bereaved, people have to do themselves or congregation?
Some of the scholars say that it's not a problem to do if it's congregation. It's not a problem. But of course, you know, you should also do individual dua yourself when everyone has left. You know, and the person that's maybe doing the reminders there has left, that you should ask Allah the Almighty to aid the deceased. Yes.
Before performing ghusl, do you receive permission from the family?
Before performing ghusl, when I did the performance, it was as if everything has finished beforehand. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Meaning, if when I did it then I did it as if I was a family member. But generally speaking, yes, if you're going to wash, usually it's something that happens anyway. The person that's going to wash the deceased, the family members already know, or they're there with you present, so therefore they would know already that you're going to wash the deceased. Of course, the brother mentioned a good point. Of course, you're not supposed to just hasten with regards to, and another thing as well, brothers, that try and inform people that the person is dying. Some people maybe sometimes they die and then you don't know that maybe that person would have been able to attend the janazah. So therefore, as well with the family members, if they are not in the country, inform them, get in contact with them so that they know maybe they want to wash the deceased. So the brother mentioned a good point that you should try your best to inform the family members of the deceased so that inshallah when it's happening, they know as well and you sought permission and what have you. But that performance, that specific tatbiq, practical steps were as if we had taken permission already.
Reciting at the time of burial that doesn't benefit the mayyit. How does the sadaqah jariyah for the mayyit beneficial? Then people recite the Holy Quran after for the mayyit.
Okay, to answer your question, very good question. Innovation, we have to understand what innovation is, then we'll answer your question. Innovation is something that we do at a specific time, okay, a specific occasion, okay, and with a specific intention. So that's what it goes back down to. People that recite Quran there and then, is you ask yourself, did the Prophet ﷺ do it? If the answer is no, then that is an innovation. With regards to Sadaqah Jariyah, that's completely different. Sadaqah Jariyah is something that you have the intention after the deceased has gone and you buried him and what have you, and you want to do Sadaqah Jariyah in order to benefit them in their grave. So there's a difference between reciting Quran there and your intention, you get the Mus'haf when you recite Quran in order for you to say, okay, I'm going to read Quran to benefit, and knowing that this is not something that the Prophet ﷺ or his companions did. This then will fall into innovation because you're doing it at a specific time, specific occasion, with a specific intention, which is against the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. As for when you do Sadaqah Jariyah, you're going to build a well and all these other acts of worship, you're going to build an orphanage and what have you. This is something that you're doing out of your own goodwill in order to benefit the deceased. And we know that from the best means of Sadaqah Jariyah is the son, your own children, your own offspring, make it da'ah for you. That's from the best. And anything you left of knowledge and what have you, or maybe you used to feed the orphan and it carries on, these are from the best things that will benefit you. Anything else upon it? With that note, inshallah, we'll conclude. May Allah Azza wa Jal accept it from us, make it of benefit, and ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive us from any shortcomings and mistakes. Then it is from me. Allah asks Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive me, and if anything is of benefit, then it's only from the tawfiq of Allah Azza wa Jal. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاكم الله خير for your patience.